So first of all, it is my great privilege to introduce our guest speaker. I actually also was the Honorary Consul of Colombia for 12 years. Do I have a feel and a passion for Colombia? You better believe it, I do. And I will tell you right now that we are very fortunate. I think you're all aware of what's happening with the Government of Canada, that we are going to have a free trade agreement very soon with Colombia. So Canada, Colombia, before the U.S., just to let you know that. So I'm just putting it in perspective, everything that's going to happen here in the next hour and 15 minutes. So my very great privilege is to introduce to you Susan Miller, who is currently the Vice President of International Business Development for Enbridge. Of course, all of you know this amazing company. Enbridge, of course, is based in Calgary. She has been employed with Enbridge for more than 23 years. From 2006 to 2009, she was the general manager of Ocensa in Colombia. And this is being able to, where you are actually running that pipeline. You can imagine, first time they'd ever had a woman in that role. And so I had the great privilege of getting to know Susan when she was posted over there. And some great stories that she can tell you. But I will tell you right now that Ocensa is the largest crude oil pipeline system, of course, in Colombia. And it has a capacity of 550,000 barrels per day of both heavy and light crude. And just to finish off, because I only try to say about three major things about our speaker. She, from 99 to 2006, she was Vice President of International Technology with responsibility for projects in 25 countries, which includes China, Oman, Brazil, Mexico, and Spain. It's a very great privilege to have you here, Susan. So I'd like you to give a welcome to Susan Miller.
Thank you, Lois, and good afternoon to everybody. I'm very pleased to be invited here. My job is to basically be as the representative of a company that was a major investor in Colombia, in the infrastructure of Colombia, and to talk to you about why we did it, how we did it, and what our experiences were while we were down there. Oh, I guess I run the projector. First off, for those of you who aren't aware of who is Enbridge, I'd like to just give you a really quick overview. Of course, we primarily are a transportation company. We're a very old company. We've been around for 60 years. We are publicly traded, widely held. Biggest asset you can see here in the blue is the liquid lines. So we transport about 69% of all of the Canadian crude that's transported into the United States. We have in total transport more than 2 million barrels a day of liquids on the system. And for some of you who haven't kept up with what we're doing, and we've moved into gas. You can see there we own 50% of the Alliance transportation system. We own 60% of the Vector transportation system. We own the largest natural gas distribution company in Canada. We also own and operate all of the 40% of what is produced in the deep water Gulf of Mexico, and yes, the area that is currently experiencing this terrible, catastrophic environmental issues in that area. And we have gas gathering and gas processing in this area. We have about $27 billion in assets right now, about 6,000 employees. So when did we get into, actually Colombia was our very first international venture, and that was in 1994, and the company wasn't even called Enbridge at the time, it was called IPL Energy. And we invested $115 million. So why did we invest? Well, quite frankly, we were, I wouldn't say the first choice. It was when the Cusiana-Cupiaguas fields were discovered, which are located just actually northeast of Bogota a little bit. It was the largest discovery in North America in a 10-year time frame. And of course, it needed a methodology to get it from these fields out to the export ports in the Caribbean. And the international lenders, and in looking at Colombia at that time, had some misgivings because there was a lot of social unrest and there was a lot of security issues in the country at the time. It wasn't particularly a country that had had a lot of experience with long-distance pipelines, so it was the international lenders made it a criteria that one of the partners in the consortium had to be an experienced transmission system owner and operator. And so both Enbridge and TransCanada became partners in the original Ocensa in 1994. When with TransCanada, we formed a company in Bogota called Sitcall. And this Sitcall became the mechanism, the structure that we used in order to run the pipeline. So probably in the first few years, we had up to 30 expats down there, culminating by my tenure with only 2 expatriates from Enbridge, but 160 full-time employees in Ocensa, all Colombians, of course. And then in 2000, TransCanada exited international, and Enbridge bought another 7.2% of the portion of Ocensa, and we bought all of the Sitcall venue. And then in 2009, we actually sold our asset. Now, why did we sell? We sold because it was the right business to do at the right time. It wasn't something that we were looking for. It was something that our partner, Ecopetrol, had been in discussions with. It was something very strategic for them, and it was something that was the right thing for us to do at the time for our company because we were in the midst of a $13 billion expansion in North America, and this would mean that we would have no need to issue equity in order to fund our requirements for last year. But before I start, I'm pretty sure everybody who's in this room knows where it is, but let me just make sure that everybody knows that Colombia is this little green one up here, located basically bordering Panama, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Brazil. And I won't say anything more about that. Who were the Ocensa shareholders? Ocensa stands for Oleoducto Central de S.A., so it was just a pipeline acronym. But at the time that we left and sold our shares, the shareholders were Ecopetrol, which is right now 90% state-owned, but 10% of the corporation has been floated publicly. BP, Total, another division of BP called BP Santiago, and Enbridge, of course. So those of you who do understand topographical maps, this one is interesting because we cross 3 large mountain ranges in order to get to the coast. So here you can see is Bogota, and here is the production fields that we're actually shipping from. And the pipeline follows this right-of-way, goes through some very stunning terrain, and ends up at an export port in Coveñas.